If ever there were a sector in which the boardroom seats should be graced by more women, retail is it. It's a female industry. It's targeted at women, its spenders are women, its target customer is referred to as a she, and yet the women who lead these businesses in UK retail are the exception rather than the norm. A study found last year that the number of CEO roles filled by women in the UK in the retail sector fell by 40%. The underlying issue remains that women need more confidence to pursue their dreams. Retail Week's Be Inspired campaign wants to do just that. By using the stories of those people who have made it to the top, we want to shine a spotlight on those role models that will help fuel the future ambitions of tomorrow's women leaders.
I get the chance to look at retail across the world quite a lot. I don't think there is right now a better environment to be working in retail in the UK and Ireland. I think it's incredible what we're doing as a sector, and we have an awful lot of women working for us, and it's beholden on all of us to set an example, do the right thing, and really develop and inspire people to achieve their dreams. Both now and in the future. We've got an awful lot of young women in the business as well, 16, 18-year-olds, and for them to be able to look up the organisation and say, oh my goodness me, the world really is my oyster. I can start as a Saturday girl on the checkout and one day I can be the chief executive. I think that's absolutely incredible. And I think the best is yet to come, genuinely.
Often it is about certain individuals that you come across within that career. When I first got the area manager job, I think there were only 2 area managers within Topshop, and all the regional controllers were male, and with the exception of HR, all the directors were male. And that changed very, very quickly, and a lot of that within the retail team was down to Mike Goring, who now works at Debenhams, and he actively encouraged the promotion of women and the support of women in order to look at the gender balance.
When I worked for Summerfield, there was a store manager in one of our stores in Scotland. She had incredible attention to detail, an incredible eye for how to drive the business, fantastic customer interaction. I mean, she was just charming and funny and self-effacing, and she did sort of everything. You know, she was a brilliant pillar in the community, and I was just mesmerised by her capability and her ability to inspire other people. And whenever I think about whether or not I've done a good job, I think about her and I think, what would she say?
Almost slightly out of the blue came this promotion. And Terry Green at the time had created 3 mini binder merchandising director roles. So lingerie, kidswear and champion sport. I was delighted, absolutely delighted. And then he said, however, we're not going to have any heads of buying or merchandising reporting into you. So the trading teams will all report directly into you. Right. So I think the challenge, let's say at the time, was I'd never ran merchandising, and all of a sudden I had a merchandising team reporting directly into me. And I think it's at times like that that you learn very quickly and have to use the people around you to help you.
I've always found those people around me who energise me. There's a danger with anyone, male or female, that you recruit and surround yourself with people who are like you. Because if you do that in a work environment, you end up dropping a load of clangers because you need balance. You need the, rigorous analysts. You need the get on and do it people. You need the completer finishers. You need a balanced team. But in terms of the more soft side of how you get yourself kind of ready for battle, and the people you have around you to kind of inspire and motivate, then I think it's okay to pick the people who energise you. And I've always found them.
There's rarely a problem with gender diversity in UK retail up until senior management.
But the step into the world of the C-suite proves a challenge. It's at this point that the balance tips. So what happens to these women who struggle to make the leap? I wanted to find out whether or not the glass ceiling, an archaic concept, is still alive and well.
It's a great mystery, isn't it? I mean, you know, a lot of retail organisations, particularly obviously given the volume of fashion retail businesses, are run by women up to a certain point in terms of the employee ratios. And then once you get to that very top level, they disappear. What happens, in your opinion?
Well, I think there are a number of reasons. I think you can come at it from a society point of view in terms of women leaving to have children and whether there is the full support, whether there's I'd love to see wraparound childcare supported by the government. I think that there is a perception piece around some leaders don't necessarily see the value of women, and I think the fact that women sometimes play down their achievements does not help that cause. And I think there aren't enough female role models, and we definitely need more of them. And we need women to own their success, raise their head above the parapet, share their success stories, and inspire other women.
I've never really set out a career path and said, I'm going to do that next, and then I want that job, and I'm waiting for his job or her job. I've never really done that. Matter of fact, on a number of occasions, I've been asked to do something different or asked to step up, and I've probably been a little bit surprised, but always been confident. Well, yeah, that sounds good. I can do that. But I've always worked hard. I mean, I know that. I mean, I do work hard. It's because I love what I do. I don't stop at 5 o'clock, and I don't stop on a Friday evening.
I have found out some things about different industries through my work with the Women's Business Council, which is an organisation set up by the government but not in any way affiliated to the government, and we advise them and business on how to support women and increase their contribution to the economy. And I think that certainly from the information that I've fed in, that I don't think retail potentially is as ruthless for women as some of the other industries out there. However, I think that it does all depend obviously on the individual retailer. And I think that this is where men, if you like, are really, really key, because if you do have a male CEO who doesn't themselves promote a culture of ruthlessness, then the women within that organisation do not feel that they need to in any way compete and be ruthless in order to succeed. So I think it's often not just about the industry, but the individual cultures within the business. And a culture can completely change within a company with the change of CEOs or key directors.
I think honestly, flexible working is probably one of the key things that would make a difference. I mean, certainly in our organisation, it is exactly as you say. An awful lot of females in this organisation, and then fewer as you go through. And if you speak to them about what stops them from progressing, it's usually about hours worked and the demands of a bigger job. And giving people the flexibility to be able to go out to do things that are important in their family life is the thing that will make a difference. And we have got to message quite clearly that it's acceptable to do those things, or else I don't think things will change.
People coming out of university as the start point, women do every bit as well as men. I mean, you can look at stats that say they do better, but let's just forget that. They do every bit as well as men. And going through organisations, they do every bit as well as men. It's just that last bit that seems to happens. And I have this view, and I think I got this, it's a US kind of model for success, but I think it helps explain why some women make it and others don't. And it's called sort of ABC. So you've got to have three things. You've got to have ability. So that means you've got to be good at something. That's true of everybody. To be successful, there's got to be something that sort of sets you apart. The second one is B, is for breaks, which means lucky. Be in the right place at the right time. That we all know that that's a huge part of progression, is being a little bit lucky. But to capitalise on that, you've got to have the third letter, C, for courage. and you've got to be prepared to put your head above the parapet. You have got to have the confidence to walk into a crowded room and stand up and make a speech. You have got to say, I know that looks really tricky and difficult, but go on, I will do it. Yeah. And I think because there's a lot of pressure on men to be successful, you know, socially, culturally, historically, men are sort of measured by how successful they are in the workplace or on the sports field or whatever. Women, less so. There's less pressure on them, and therefore there's less pressure on them to show that courage.
These women are among the relative few that have made it to the top of the industry. But along the way, they've made difficult decisions and compromises. So what enabled them to make those sacrifices? Was it about the people they met along the way? Was it about being in the right place at the right time? Ruthless ambition? Luck? Or a combination of all these things?
What about the sort of single greatest challenge you think you've faced to date?
I think that's probably quite easy, and it's interesting because when I'm asked that, I still get quite emotional about this, and that was when I had cancer, which is now just over 10 years ago. And the business was at a stage where I was still doing an awful lot in the business, and it was relatively small compared to where it is now. And a lot of the responsibility sat with me. So I then had 6 months of very aggressive chemo with 2 small children, and I nearly lost the business. It was very, very difficult to keep the confidence of the retailers and the brands that we work with when they could physically see, because I looked, you know, I lost my hair and I looked very ill, physically see that the person that they saw as completely running the business was obviously very ill. Afterwards, you then reflect back, and I learnt a lot, and I then made sure that we had stronger people within the business that could take more of the responsibility for driving it forward.
My biggest challenge was when I tried to open a store in Dublin, and I was faced with a lot of challenges by the Dublin Corporation, a lot of pushback because they didn't want Ann Summers on the high street. And actually I received a bullet through the post, which, you know, was probably the most challenging part of my career. But I felt so passionate about the business. I hated the idea of being bullied into not opening a store there. So I went ahead with the store opening, and despite you know, being issued a writ on the first day of opening and trying to close us down, I'm glad to say that we had 10,000 people through the door signing our petition. And the Dublin store, which opened in 1999, is one of our top 3 performing stores in our portfolio, and is on the tourist bus route in Dublin.
You know, I wanted the children very much so, but equally I wanted to continue with my job. So it was quite clear, you know, right from the onset that, you know, we were going to, you know, work through this as a team. I've been very fortunate that my husband also works in the trade, so he understands, you know, exactly what, and has always been very, very keen to support me to do that. So I suppose it's like anything that you deliver well, you know, it's always about that team attitude and approach. So whether it's, you know, team home boss dog, or whether it's, you know, team at work, you know, that's the way you've got to approach things.
You never made to feel like you weren't there enough. My children certainly do that to me.
Yeah, no, definitely, of course, of course. But you see, then, you know, they reach a certain age, and then it's great to have a mummy who travels everywhere and brings, you know, really lovely things back from New York and so on. It's only in those very young years when you're not at the school gate that, you know, you get the big guilt thing. I remember arriving at school to one of the youngest boys' speech days in a helicopter because I had to get back to London quickly, and you can imagine, I mean, yeah, exactly. So it all changed. It all changes then.
For when I had my first child, I was working within Topshop and went back full time. And then after my second child, I actually for a while worked in a job share, which was really good within Arcadia. But unfortunately, got made redundant. And at that point, I found it extremely difficult, well, nigh on impossible, to find find a part-time or flexible role within the industry. And that's really the reason I ended up setting up the business and working for myself, because it wasn't me having a grand idea about building a big and successful business. It was about wanting to be able to look after 2 children and be the mother I wanted to be, but also work at a level I wanted to work, because I could have taken part-time, but I would have had to really drop back, and again, this was 21 years ago, had to have dropped back in terms of the level that I was working.
I remember going to the Walmart Global Conference in Dallas with over 20,000 people there. The first time the Union Jack was represented, because it was obviously in that very first year of Walmart taking over Asda. And watching that go up, was a real tingling moment. There was only myself and Andy Bond there, and it was absolutely overwhelming.
I have 2 girls, and my job is to inspire them that they can do absolutely anything and the world is their oyster. And I take that really seriously. They've only ever known me being at work, and I am incredibly proud of them, and I hope when they're old enough to really understand it, because they're quite little still, they'll be proud of me, and they'll be proud that maybe I broke some barriers down, and when it's their generation, things will be different again. And I think that washes down the organisation, whether you're male or female. I hope the people that work for me don't feel they can't go to their kids' nativity play or their kids' sports day or whatever it is. I think it's really important that you have balance, and some of my best ideas have been when I've had downtime.
Yeah. I'm quite competitive, I'm quite driven, I'm results orientated. If I'm going to go to work and work hard, I want to get the most out of it that I possibly can, both in terms of enjoying it, but also, reward. So I suppose it was just almost for me an inevitability that I would do as well as I possibly could. You don't know at the outset where that level is going to be, but you know that you're going to work as hard as you can to do as well as you can, to have as much influence as you can in that organisation.
It's clear that the vast majority of the sector does want equality through all tiers of retail. The issue becomes turning desire for equality into reality. This inevitably comes down to people and the importance of demonstrating the achievement of others. So what is being done to inspire others to have ambition for the top?
It's absolutely essential that we have more women at senior level. First of all, 70% of our customers are women. A large proportion of I think it's the same actually, 70% of our workforce are women. And I think if everybody could truly approach the whole board thing and senior thing as it must be the best person for the job. That is what I do. I recruit the best person for the job, and I have 50% women and 50% men on my board.
I think what is really great about retail is there are lots of different role models, because there are lots of different businesses. I don't think we are one size fits all. And I actually think that's fantastic if you are coming up through an organisation, because I think you don't have to conform to a particular look and feel.
You don't have to be a CEO or a director to be a role model. I think that when somebody comes into a business age 18 or age 21, what they actually need, as well as some directors being female, I think they need someone who's age 25, who's at that second level of management, so that they can see that at each level, regardless of whether you're just starting out, regardless whether you're returning, having had children, or even if you're older and looking at next steps within your career, that there are people you can look at and think they've achieved it, and I can see their career route.
You do have to work hard, you do have to be committed, and you do have to make some sacrifices around the family. I mean, we can't pretend you don't, because at the same time, so do the men in those situations. So it's not a different set of rules. But as long as you have that you know, that support and that plan around you, which women are usually very good at, you know, you can absolutely develop and get into those positions.
There's absolutely a weight of evidence that demonstrates that balance creates better results in every respect. And so, you know, we do need to address the balance, and therefore we do have a responsibility to ensure that those channels are open for women to progress to the levels they deserve to be at. But you have to do it. There isn't an easy route. No one's going to stop it being difficult or stop you having to feel frightened and frightening yourself to death at the things that you take on to progress. You have to be brave. And if you do, you'll be every bit as successful as men.
I don't feel I've made sacrifices for my daughter. I feel that I've just managed my life in, you know, a very creative way, I guess. I just think she is already inspired. I mean, she said to me the other night, she said, "Mummy, will I get a CBE one day?"
We need to make people really feel valuable and enable everybody to succeed and achieve their dreams and achieve their goals. And I think every day that we do a little bit to make things better, whatever that may be, is going to make the organisations that we work in, the retail sector that we're part of and that we're so proud to be part of, even better.
Bringing these stories to life, making their successes tangible, creating the kind of inspiration that turns ambition into reality, moves this debate out of theory and into practice, out of statistics and into the stories that can dispel the notion of a glass ceiling once and for all.